everyone, welcome to Career with Kalpi. In the last session, we had a great conversation with Shruti Rustagi, who's the CFO of Amazon's Canada Consumables business. The link for that session is available in the description below. Today, I have a very special guest with me to talk about a career in academia. One who needs no introduction, Professor Leena Chatterjee. Professor Leena Chatterjee has been one of the most loved professors on the IIMC campus. After spending 37 plus years with IIM Calcutta as a professor of behavioral sciences, she has now moved to BITSoM, BITS School of Management. She also has a PhD in social and organizational psychology from IIT Kanpur. Hi, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking out the time to be on the series. Really excited for our conversation.
I'm so happy to see you again. And it's lovely to be connecting with an old student again like this.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. So, ma'am, to begin with, if you could tell us a little bit more about your academia career journey, how did you choose to be in this field?
Well, Kalpi, I think that, when we look at any career, I guess we don't start off with thinking, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do that. We kind of explore, experiment, try to think about things, right? And I was really lucky, because when I was in school, I was probably good at writing and I was good at English language and I loved English literature. So somewhere I was, and also I came from a family where there was a very strong value to do something meaningful and give back to society. Both my parents were professional social workers. So, the first thought that came to me was that I want to be a journalist. And I was all set to do my, graduation in English and then do a mass comm kind of degree and then get into journalism. But then, during my break, after my school leaving, at that time it was class 11. So my father said, why don't you explore more areas? Why are you sort of so stuck on doing English, which you are anyway good at or you like? Why don't you find out more about different kinds of alternative areas? And he got me books on sociology, on psychology, on history, political science. He got me a whole lot of different kinds of books. He said, go and explore the syllabus in Delhi University. And so I kind of started actually doing a career search, so to speak, or basically a subject search. And I actually found that I enjoyed psychology. I really read some very interesting books on psychology and I thought it was amazing and I had not done it before. So I said, okay, at least for my graduation decision sorted, I'm going to do psychology. So I joined Lady Shri Ram College in Delhi, and it was, a college where I had some amazing teachers, and they really became great role models for me because they made the subject come alive. They were so much in love with the subject. And so after that, I decided to do my master's from Delhi University from North Campus, where again, I met a couple of very amazing teachers, but I also saw some bad teachers. It was a mix. And at the end of my master's, I thought, look, I've had enough of studying. Let me go out and explore some profession. So I went off and worked for a year in a social work organization. And I went to the villages in Bihar and in Haryana, and I, stayed there for 3 months each. And I got to know a different India. It was really amazing. And as a consequence of that, I was thinking, I want to get into social science research. I want to be a social work, get into social work and do some good research and policy formulation in, the social sciences. So I thought I would do a PhD. So actually, I went to IIT Kanpur to do my PhD in psychology. And there I started teaching. So my God. So, it was just by luck, a teacher, a professor who was going on 2 weeks leave, he asked me to take 2 weeks of classes for him. And initially, of course, it was not so easy. I will tell you about that maybe a little later. But at the end of those 2 weeks, it was like I was in my zone. And it was almost as if it was an aha experience. This is what I want to do. And I think the students also responded so positively that when he came back, he actually got feedback and he gave me half his course. So,
Wow,
that was an amazing opportunity.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
That's when I said, it is academia. And I did join academia more for the teaching than for the research, though I do believe that, both are important. But certainly it was the connection, the communication, the ability to see transformation in the classroom when people have an idea, they explore it, it was amazing.
Awesome. So I think that is exactly our next question as well. As a new professor, was it tough to teach a classroom full of grown-up students?
Yeah, so,
And
yeah, okay.
and then how did you cope with the challenges of being a new professor?
So, well, let me now tell you about my first day of taking class for that professor who had gone on leave. So I was teaching fourth year BTech students who I would liken to hardened, I don't know what's, they were like, they knew that this is a new person coming in to teach us, and they were not listening. They were kind of playing maybe noughts and crosses or throwing darts at each other, and generally an unruly crowd. And I came in there, and the night before I had prepared my lecture in front of my friends in the hostel, and they were very kind. They kept nodding and saying ha ha, and they were very kind of responsive. So I went into class and I carried some notes. And then the first thing I see is there's no table to keep my notes. So I'm holding my notes in my hand. There's the blackboard, me, and then there are these students. And I was like, okay, so now I have to start. So I started speaking to them, and I just found that, they were looking disinterested. They were laughing. They were, looking totally not concerned about what I was saying. And after about 10 minutes of having talked to this very unresponsive class, I said, okay, you can go now. Tomorrow we'll have whenever we'll meet on the next class. And I rushed out and I went to my prof, who was my guide, and I said, look, I'm not going back to that class. One of you better take it. This is not working. And being a very kind and uh, sort of friendly soul, she said, you're going right back there and teaching them. So she said, you can't give up. You have to think of strategies and go in there and teach them. So it was like, I had to go back. I had lost face. They knew I had run out of class. I mean, naturally, they realized that 10 minutes later, I'm just vanishing. And I had to go back and teach them. So then I thought, let me prepare a little differently. Let me bring them into the discussions. So, I started, by asking some questions, or I started by asking them about what they had done previously and then saying, okay, how do we build up on this? So I started doing a little more of not giving them a lecture, but kind of trying to engage them. And initially, some of them resisted, but then, some of them wanted to show off their knowledge as well. And, students also like to speak.
Absolutely. I know that.
So I got them a little hooked. And then over a period of time, I found that I was able to also use that lecture to discuss things that I wanted to and create interest through examples, through stories. And I think it was a very, very great lesson in building resilience, the ability to bounce back, the ability to deal with a failure and loss of face and go back, to be a little more thick-skinned. I think it was a useful life lesson for me. And I think that as I became friendlier and easier with them, it became a delight. It was so much fun, and we looked forward to it. And I don't know if you realize this, but I think engineering students are always looking for a subject which is not from their core
Engineering.
engineering, wanting to run away from it. And psychology can be very interesting. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I was lucky also that my subject was very appealing, and it worked. And I think that gave me a lot of confidence. So by the time I came to IIM Calcutta, I was like, I can handle this.
Great. Awesome. Although I, ma'am, honestly feel that it was not your subject, it was you, because you have that, charisma. And that is my next question as well. You are and you were one of the most loved professors of all time, and you know that in IIM Calcutta. How do you build that relationship with students year after year? Because it wasn't just like a 1 year or a 2 years phenomena, right? That happened year after year. So how do you build that relationship?
I think 2 or 3 things. One is, do you enjoy your job? Do you love your job? Do you have a passion for it? Do you, I mean, there was never a day, even till today, that I have got up and felt, oh my God, I have to go to work. I used to enjoy, especially on days when you have class. Anything that I did, something that I did find a little kind of not so motivating was administration, the academic administration part of the job. But teaching and, even interacting with my PhD students and their research, I enjoyed it. So one is that, do you enjoy what you do, and do you love your subject? So, I mean, for me, I would only teach things that I actually genuinely believed in. If I'm convinced about something, it's easier for me to convince you about it,
Makes sense.
right?
Yeah.
So that whole thing of talk, not just teaching for the sake of teaching, but teaching because you have a conviction about something. So that's one thing. The second is love to my students, every one of you. I have so much of an interest in my students. I I care about them deeply. And it's because I think I have one of the best jobs in the world, dealing with young minds, dealing with young people who are idealistic, who are, maybe unhappy, maybe, looking for something or the other, wanting stimulation, wanting to be, sort of understood. I don't know. I think it's just that understanding and reaching out to my students, both inside and outside the class, and listening to them and wanting to work with them to see them become better versions of who they were. My WIP, works in progress.
Yeah.
So that, I think that kept me going. And I think that helped me because if you enjoy, if you love what you're doing, and if you enjoy interacting with people, if you have a genuine interest in them, you're curious about them, you want to know them better, I think people respond mostly.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Moving to a little bit on your transition from IIM Calcutta after 37 plus years to now BITSoM, how has that been?
Okay, so it takes time. I thought it would be seamless. So after I retired from IIMC, there was an old student of mine from the 24th batch, Ranjan Banerjee, who used to be the dean at SP Gen. And he had been telling me that, once you retire, I want you to come and do some work for us, because he had been my student in management of self, and he had also been my student in the first year BS course and things like that. So he was like, come and teach for us and things like that. So I said, yeah, we'll see. And then what happened was, just around the time I was going to retire, he got this offer from BITSoM. He got an offer from Mr. Birla to set up a new global institute of management out of Mumbai as part of the BITS Pilani University. And BITS Pilani is a institute of national eminence, and they have a degree granting status. So we could do a 2-year MBA program from this campus. And it is kind of on the lines of ISB in the sense that we have global faculty. We have a lot of faculty coming in from all over the world. And Ranjan and I are the two permanent faculty as of now. We are going to slowly kind of increase the number of permanent faculty, but we are doing it slowly. So the reason I joined was because he sold me this idea of being part of uh, a startup where we are going to create a new, institute of our dreams. And he has a lot of shared values with me, because our institute, we are focusing on student centricity. We are focusing on creating psychological safety so that everybody can have a voice and be able to say what they want fearlessly. We are trying to create a new age curriculum which is much more industry engaged. I'm doing a lot of work with each student. So I do a personal development plan with each student, almost like the management of self course for every student. So I think there's a lot of things that we are doing which are very exciting and very enriching. And we have a lovely first batch, founding batch of 138 students, very diverse group. And it's fun. But if you're asking me again about the transition, let me say my heart beats for Joka.
Thank you for saying that.
I cannot forget my, I can't forget, IIMC. And, when I first came here, I was always saying at my institute as if, I was still there, because 36, 37 years of a place. And, it's not even just, the institute, my colleagues, my students, it's also Joka, the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I missed that a lot when I came, and leaving Calcutta and coming here. But Kalpi, one of the reasons I also came was because I've been telling all of you all these years, get out of your comfort zone, try something new.
Absolutely.
I said, okay, I should also do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Coming back a little bit to now, our young professors, it sounds like there are so many different responsibilities as a professor, which the outside world probably doesn't know about. What are some of the skill sets that you think are essential for a successful career in academia?
So let me just say that, today, if you're looking at a career in academia in India, or even if you're doing it abroad, but even more so, there is a focus on being research active. So that's a very important part of your portfolio. In my time, we could be good teachers and we could also do research. And we had research to PhD students, we published, but it was not something that was a kind of, very, very strong necessity. Today, if I look at the way in the last 4 or 5 years, my own PhD students, while they were at IIMC, we were trying to get them to publish at least one article. So, in a good journal, because, once you get out, you need publications in order to get jobs. So that is something that has changed a lot. And you need things, there are these lists like ABDC and, there are different kinds of lists of which are the best journals. And you need to have publications in some of the good journals or the best journals. So that's something that puts a little bit of pressure on them.
Understood.
So you need to be willing to be research active, to work on your, publications, to be able to deal with the whole circle of revise and resubmit to journals and the pain of having to be rejected, things like that. The other thing that you need to be good at and you should enjoy is teaching. I don't think in this career it's money that motivates. In this career, you need to have intrinsic motivation. You need to enjoy going into the classroom. You need to have a sense of enjoyment in talking to young people.
Right.
You need to be willing to connect. I think that is important. I think one of the things I think I focused on in my early years and which helped me a lot is on also pedagogy. How do I teach? It's not just knowing your subject. It's how do you create that connect with the audience? So how are you audience centric when you're sharing your concepts or theories or knowledge or data? I think how do you make it real for them?
Right.
So, for example, having the novel or movie presentations, or right in the back in 30 years ago, 35 years ago, I would be doing movie, novels or movies and things like that with students, so that getting them engaged with using their knowledge to apply it to different situations. I think that is also for a teacher to be concerned about their pedagogy. It's not coming into class and doing blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely. I think you have covered a huge part of this, but I would ask anyway. How do you define success as a professor for yourself?
Okay, for me, success is when my students come back and say that I have made a difference, or that they remember my course or what I had taught them, or a poem I had shared in class, 20, 25 years down the line. A lot of students write to me and tell me that what you said in class, we never used to pay too much attention to. But now, when I look back, yours is the course that is most important in my work life. And thank you so much. So I think it is the gratitude and the kind of messages I get from my students about having made a difference or having affected their lives in some small way, that there's nothing to compare with that. That's successful.
Awesome. One last question, ma'am. Any tips or advice for people who are looking to make a career as a professor? Any last tips? Because I know you've covered a lot already.
So I think, definitely while the UGC has recently announced that we are not going to just look for PhDs for teaching, I think it'll take a little bit of time for that to really come into effect for institutes. But if you're really interested in teaching, I think the first kind of kind of not barrier, but the first task that you have to set yourself is doing your PhD. And the PhD can be a lonely journey. So you really need to have a lot of interest in the subject and self-motivation to work through that 4 or 5 years of your life when you do your PhD. All right. So I would say a lot of people get disillusioned and disappointed right there. So that's the first thing. But I think after that, I think once you start teaching, and if you can use your PhD to also do a little bit of teaching like I did, to become a academic associate or a teaching assistant, to take a few sessions, to try and that keeps you motivated, that keeps you a little excited or interested. So I think that is one thing. The first hurdle that you have to cross is the doing the PhD. Second hurdle is publishing and regularly publishing your research. I think a lot of my initial publications came out of my own consulting and training. So I did a lot of work, for example, with helping organizations that were downsizing. And then I did some research in that area with my second PhD student. So we worked on downsizing. So, bringing problems from industry into our research and trying to see how we can, contribute. I think that also gives you a lot of meaningfulness.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful career. Every day is different, and I'm being paid to read and to communicate and to interact with bright young minds. And what more could anyone want?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching. I'm sure you enjoyed this conversation and got a lot of helpful insights. Please let us know in comments if there are any questions that you want to ask based on our discussion today, or if there's any other career path that you want to know more about. Stay tuned to Career with Kalpi. Keep safe. See you in the next one.